On Monday after a very busy severe weather day. We had first alert weather day called for a while. As you hopefully know, after a weekend, we were at a level 4 out of 5, which is a little bit rare, a little bit unusual, and unfortunately that definitely came through. We had hundreds of thousands at one point in the dark, and I want to update you before we take a look at some video on that. So I want to head over here. This is a power outage map, and right now you see this 70,459 without power in the state of Tennessee. Most of that is in our own backyard. So Roane County, 1,300 customers. I mean, that's a lot of the customers. That's about a quarter. Morgan County, a little under half the county that's tracked here is without power. Bledsoe, Cumberland still 4,000 plus customers without power. Nearly 10,000 customers without power. Jefferson, severe. And then right here in Knox County, KUB, still reporting massive power outages, and we heard from the Knoxville Utilities Board, and they said, as we wait for this to load, I had trouble loading it on one phone, that some of this power may take days to come back on. So I'm going to refresh this and get you the update on our Facebook Live. So I want to take some of your questions too. Let's see. Dandridge is without power. Paula, you've got to turn your phone volume up. We did a mic check, so we know the volume is working just fine. So what you need to do is turn your volume on your phone up. But I want to take you to some video here, as it started out as extremely heavy rainfall with the first alert. Look at that, just absolute deluge. You see like a Ford Bronco in the front, the white one, and then there's trucks going the opposite way. You really couldn't see much. This is the view as it came through in our own backyard, our back porch here at WVLT, and those are hailstones. You can see the leaves just being ripped down. Then our Ted Hall took this video. This is Dean Hill. You're like, okay, what am I seeing? But wait for it. And then boom, right there. That's one house with giant trees down. And then next door, the rancher is seeing more wind damage, and unfortunately that wind damage started here. This is WVLT's own drone video from the Lovell Crossings area, and if you're thinking, goodness, that kind of looks like a tornado, well, it's still TBD. What we do know is that the National Weather Service office in Morristown is going to be conducting a survey in both Farragut and in Morristown. What we saw was worse damage actually up in Dandridge, which is where our Jacob Durham was, and you'll hear from him a little later on tonight. So there's that video as we were in the Lovell Crossings area over here. And man, there were hundreds of folks displaced, unfortunately. Let me take you up here to the Knox County Sheriff's Office video too. So what they did, they have a helicopter, as you may have seen before, and they flew up, and this is what gives you the damage path. You can see a clear swath. Wait a couple more seconds. David, if we could, you take us full, let me take us full screen here. So some beautiful homes, and right there you start to see some of the damage, and then the helicopter follows what is an obvious path. And by the way, this is on our Facebook page, so if you're watching, just go to like the post below, and there's the full 3 minutes 5 seconds post. So there's more damage. They pan to the right, there's more damage. I mean, it's hard to say for sure if it was a tornado because it's not just obliterating things, but what we heard from other folks is that some of the trees were torn down in basically a cyclonic way. So on one side of the road, they're facing one way, the other side of the road, they're facing the other. All right, I do want to take you back to the KUB map, so let's head over here. And what we're seeing right now is that 19,906, look at the left side of your screen, are still without power. That is spread out across a lot of the coverage area for KUB. That's the Knoxville Utilities Board. That's where I get my power from. That's where a lot of you do. And they're just like, let's say, the Easttown Mall area, 688. Holston Hills area, 245, 799. Where a lot of the worst damage was, if you can see my cursor, was down here, and then the Lovell area. So then we start to change power providers, and it gets to like LCUB. So we go back here, and yeah, still thousands without power in Loudoun County, 287. So what I would encourage you to do is go check out our Facebook page. You can find things like Loudoun County closing down. There were 60,000 people without power at one point, and a lot of folks without power. So our crew just talked to Scott with the Knoxville Police Department. He had something that I hadn't thought of. We know that tomorrow is the first day of school in Knox County. We know that a lot of the damage was in Knox County. Knox County Schools tells us that school's going to be running as normal for tomorrow. Well, the police department says, hey, please be careful. Not only is it the first day, but a lot of the flashing lights for school zones may not be working. So there may be kids trying to cross the road, and there's no flashing lights for the school zones in that area. That's something to think about. Again, let me just take you briefly over to Max. This is around the time, about 3 o'clock, that we had what could have been a tornado in Dandridge. But if you're just joining us, it's meteorologist Ben Cathy. We've gone through some of this video, still waiting to determine whether some small parts of the damage were tornadic in nature. And while we do that, we will look at that. Troy says the Rugrats need to go to school. Where is this damage, Donna asks. So we'll go back through it. A lot of that was in Knox County, but I'm looking at some of your questions. And again, it's important tomorrow for the first day of school in Knox County. School is in session. Carly from the school district told us WVLT, but Knoxville Police Department says some of the lights in the crossing areas for children may not be working. So this damage, to Donna's question, is at the Lovell Crossings apartment complex. It is a large apartment complex, and you see extensive damage from the WVLT drone. And it kind of forms a little bit of a path you see right there. Could have been a very large and intense downburst. Could have been tornado damage. Almost all the damage today was what we call straight line wind damage. That's just really strong, but regular thunderstorms. There's a possibility of one, maybe two, small and brief tornadoes. Again, this is the view from the Knox County Sheriff's Office helicopter. We did an interview with Sheriff Tom Spangler that we are working on. We've also talked to KUB. We've also talked to Knox County Schools. Our news team, I haven't personally, but our news team has been working very hard, and they've talked to everybody. They've talked to all the power providers. KUB says it may take days before power is restored to all of its customers. I went to let my dog out. Poor guy had been cooped up for a while, and it was already almost 80 degrees. So without power at my house, and I know a lot of you are along at it. Michael says, out on Parker Road in East Knox. Shirley says, are the storms over? Great question, and my apology, that's what I should have led with. The storms are largely over. There's a couple showers. Kim said, heard Greenville had a tornado. Greenville had a tornado warning. There is a chaser video where they say, confirmed tornado. You can't see a tornado at all. Yeah, I'll just bite my tongue there. But we know that there may have been a tornado in Greenville. This all started, by the way, just after noon when Jacob Durham, our meteorologist, went on for wall-to-wall coverage for a tornado warning in Harlan. There has been nothing that we've got out of Harlan is to indicate that there was a tornado or really any damage. Let's see. And then starting out on the plateau in Scott County and Cumberland County, we had this big wall of wind come through. And you're seeing the tail end of that video from the Knox County Sheriff's Office, which shows more of that damage. I'm going to take you, can we go to Dean Hill, David? And we'll, can we go to Dean Hill again? I want to show people that. Because what's fascinating about storm coverage is one house is fine, two doors down, not so fine. So this is from our own Ted Hall. There, everything looks fine, right? And then boom, big trees. We heard from some of you that 100-plus-year-old oak trees, which this is not what those are, but were taken down, and then back to pretty good conditions. This was the view at the WVLT back deck that our staff safely took, but that is hail ripping down leaves. Look at the tree there swaying around in the background, and we are on Bearden Hill. So if you're just joining us, I want to take you here to the outage map, which is changing up to the minute. There's 69,046 customers without power. So that is families, that is businesses, that's not people. It's way more people. That's also infrastructure like stoplights. Morgan County, they tracked 6,800 customers. Nearly 3,000 are without power. Fentress County, still 284 without power. Scott County, a few less. The brighter the warm shade, the worse it is. So Ray County, a ton of people without power. Jefferson County, nearly 10,000 still without power, about 9,500. And then in KUB's case, about 19,900 customers. Mind you, there's a lot of other power providers nearby, like Lenore City Utilities Board, LCUB. So let me go back to your questions. Heard the winds hit 80 miles an hour. Great question. Is that true? Well, I think I still have the picture on my phone. So perhaps this is what you're referring to, Cindy. If you got this alert that said, emergency alert, considerable damage up to 80 miles an hour. Now, it's likely that we had 80 mile an hour winds, but there's no proof of that yet, right? We had a 64 mile an hour gust in Crossville and nearly 60 in Knoxville. This is video from I-40 at Lovell Road, I think is what it says, and extremely heavy rainfall. Rebecca says she's been out without power on Von Orr Road in Sweetwater since 2/24. Trees down in Suburban Hills, Kingston Pike at Bridgewater. T says, thank you for that. Knox County, Robin would prefer that the kids are home. This is just what we've been told by Knox County schools, that school is in session. And let me find the email just to reiterate that. But we do want to convey that some of the flashing lights for school zones may not be working. It is the first day, so you really want to take note of that. So let me follow up here with that email. Well, I can't find it, but school's in session. Island Home, no power since 2:20. That is from Denise Carmichael. Thank you for sharing with us. And you're not alone. Nearly 20,000 folks just in the KUB area are without power. And when I say folks, that's customers. That's probably way more people than that. So if you're just joining us, this is some of the most dramatic video. Our Will Puckett and photojournalist Scott Wilk were out here at Lovell Crossings. We began to hear right around 4 o'clock, at least that's when I started hearing it, that Lovell and Cedar Bluff and Ebenezer and Peters and like the Costco area was hit really hard. When you look at the radar data, it's like a big downburst, but it's possible that embedded in that storm, we may have had a tornado. So the Weather Service office in Moorestown is going to be down for a couple surveys. One is going to be in Moorestown, which is what we've heard, and another is in Farragut. What seems likely is that they may go to Dandridge. Now, that is strictly me speculating a little bit, but Dandridge seems to be hard hit too. Did Clinton or Powell get damage or electrical outages? Yes. In fact, I'm going to take us back to the power outage map. Here is Anderson County. I mean, there's not as many power outages now, but this website may not be comprehensive. So, the power outages, yes. Was Anderson County spared a lot of the wind damage? Yes. All right, we're coming up on 8:45. Let's take one last look at the best demonstrative piece of video, and that is going to be from the WVLT drone. So you could just see how vast that damage was in the Farragut area, and a lot of folks at WVLT dealing with this as well right before school begins. So, just to recap, the storms are done. The first alert is over. The tornado watch is over, but the cleanup is not, and that could take a while. KUB says this may take days upon days to get the power back on, and other power providers could be there too. Despite that, school is on for Knoxville schools and Knox County schools tomorrow, but please be mindful of the crossing areas. The flashing lights may not work. All right, it's meteorologist Ben Cathy. Really appreciate you joining us here, and hopefully the AC comes back on soon. We'll get through this just like we've got through other first alert storms.